I remember when I first started looking at investment properties. A few years prior, I had quit my job at a tech startup to become a teacher, and I was finding it increasingly difficult to make ends meet. I was hoping to supplement my teaching salary with extra income and had decided that real estate might be the way to go. I had always been intrigued by real estate, but the idea of buying that first investment property was intimidating. My real estate experience at that point was very limited. I had once renovated a townhome I was living in and did well when it sold. On another occasion, I had rented out my house after relocating, but both were more happenstance than purposeful investments, and at best could be characterized as dipping my toe in the water. So, like most aspiring real estate moguls, I started off cautiously looking at small residential properties and never gave a thought to larger investments. It just seemed like the logical way to begin. After all, you should walk before you run, right? I thought I was just being realistic. I would do my homework each time I evaluated prospective houses or duplexes. I read a lot of real estate books and learned how to calculate my return on investment. When I found a promising property, I requested income and expense information so I could calculate what the cash flow would be. I talked to lots of brokers and asked lots of questions. There was a lot of learning going on, but I couldn't seem to find the right property, and I wasn't even certain that I knew what the right property even meant. One thing I did know was that the houses and duplexes I was looking at were not offering the kinds of returns I had hoped for. As the months passed, I started to become frustrated, but I kept at it until a new problem emerged. My pool of prospective properties was drying up. Being new to the game, I had limited my search to properties listed for sale, and since I wanted to stay local, I eventually worked my way through all the listings. Running out of options, I gradually began to widen my search parameters, and little by little, the size of the properties I was considering started to increase. I became intrigued by commercial real estate, and before I knew it, I was looking at things that would have seemed absurd to me just months earlier. What is commercial real estate? These larger properties that I tentatively began to investigate were more expensive than duplexes and ranged from small apartment buildings to offices and even some retail buildings. I remember when I first did some serious due diligence on a 6-unit apartment building. A little while later, I evaluated a 21-unit and then a small office building, and it progressed from there. These investments were well beyond my original budget, but through my reading and interactions with brokers, I began to realize that there might be ways to make money go a lot further than I had originally thought. I remember when the broker for one commercial property explained that the seller was highly motivated. In order to help make the property more attractive to prospective buyers, the seller was offering owner financing that would allow a buyer to close the deal with very little cash. That particular investment didn't work out, but it really opened my eyes. A light bulb went on, and some of the seemingly abstract financing strategies I had been reading about became a lot more real. This exposure to the concept of commercial real estate changed my way of thinking, and I began to see the world around me through a different lens. It hadn't ever occurred to me that the commercial buildings all around me were investments, and something that a regular person like me could own. While I was primarily looking at apartments, offices, and retail at this point, I've since learned that commercial real estate can be a fairly broad term and encompass a vast array of property types. In fact, ask 10 different people what commercial real estate is, and you're likely to get 10 different answers, even from people working in the industry. At its most expansive, commercial real estate can encompass any property held for the purpose of generating a return on investment. Among many other things, this typically includes such popular asset classes as apartments, offices, retail, and industrial facilities. But it can also include things like self-storage facilities, agriculture, and parking lots. Other published definitions of commercial real estate are narrower and might exclude major categories of investment property, such as multifamily. Multifamily is a fancy way of describing any residential property that includes more than 4 dwelling units. Most people use the word multifamily interchangeably with apartments, but it can also encompass things like mobile park homes or even retirement communities.